Hi there, I'm Linda and this is Untitled Permaculture. I'm out here on my roadside swale today because it's midsummer and everything is just growing so quickly that I thought I needed to come around and check out all my plants, make sure all the mulch around them is sufficient, make sure the little plants haven't been overgrown, and I thought I'd give you a quick tour of this swale while I'm at it. So all I'm going to do today is just get around to each of my plants and just check how they're going. I'm going to mostly be using my sickle to harvest the mulch which is surrounding their base and make sure everything's going okay. So I have piled up the mulch, but not right around the trunk, just to really give it a good chance of getting established, because I'm not watering out here. And it looks like it's going pretty well. This little plant that's all around it is a nitrogen fixing legume. So when you cut that, it will release some of its nitrogen to the soil. So it's not bad to give it a bit of a chop, but yeah, it's mostly all good here. It's got plenty of mulch around it. I've done a big pile of woody mulch, which is starting to break down and support the tree. Most of these grasses are being kept at bay, so that's important. This tree here is just a support tree. In early autumn, I will be using some of that for chop and drop. I'll probably take a third to half of my trees, whereas I went a lot harder last year, but I did lose quite a few trees, so I'm not going to do that again. So when I know it will definitely be cooler, I'll be doing the chop and drop. This too is also a support tree, another acacia. So I'm not going to worry too much around the base of these trees because they're pretty hardy. It's just my little productive trees or trees that I'm getting established. Now this here is another almond tree. I have had problems with the bush rats with this one, and it was quite wobbly, although it seems to be a little bit better there now. I'm just going to clear some of these creeping buttercup and make sure there's sufficient mulch around the base of this plant. When I discovered this tree was being affected by the bush rats, I did tie it up to these stakes here, but I don't think it needs these on now. Hopefully it'll just get itself re-established, and I'll get them all off. So I'll get rid of those, and I'll just make sure all of the base is fairly clear of some of these choking weeds. But the buttercup is easily cut through. It seems to be the next layer up from grasses in the succession. I'm not sure if that's right, but that's my observation, which is a good thing. It means the grasses around this tree aren't going to be such a problem, and they're definitely worse than having to deal with this creeping buttercup, which you can see underneath. I've got quite a good layer of woody mulch, which your productive trees really benefit from because it helps to get all the fungi established in the soil, which is ultimately what's going to feed your trees. A little hard with your sickle in amongst this really woody stuff, but it really can be just pulled by hand. I just really would like to get out here and establish that the base of this tree is going okay and that all the soil around it is well covered. So I think that one's good to go now. This little plant here is one of my acacias, which actually grew from some mulch we laid down up on my top swale. So dug them up and we've moved them just to fill in gaps around the place. So although it's a support tree, I do want to ensure it establishes well. So I'm just going to clear around its base, put this mulch in place and make sure that it can grow really quickly. You can see as soon as these plants get large and established, they create a bit more shade, which means the grasses don't grow as readily, and you start to see that creeping buttercup become the dominant plant that grows. Now, while I would have preferred my cover crop to have taken over this area, that didn't happen. So now I'm just making the most of what did grow, and it might just take a little longer to get it all to a place where I'd like it to be. So it's just working with the system, observing, and just working with it all as it presents. There we go. Not only does it help the plant's resilience, it means that I don't lose it in amongst all these grasses as well. All right, moving along. This one's a little native plant that again just provides some diversity. It does have a lovely little flower that appears in spring that the bees love, so it's certainly welcome in amongst it all. Just beyond that little plant that's really hiding in the grasses over here is another one of my little acacias, which same with the last little plant. I'm just going to clear around the base, give it some mulch and identify it again and give it a better chance just to take off. When you get down to it, you can see the grasses are really not too bad right around the base. It's still kind of mulch from when I first planted it, but it can do with another layer. See, a lot of this grass just kind of falls in on it. It's not right around the base. So I'm just make sure that it's not, when I put my mulch down, it's not really right up against the trunk. Make sure it doesn't rot out or anything. All right, another happy tree. These are a beautiful, delicate little flower that loves to live in really moist conditions. I'm not actually sure what it is, but it's starting to grow profusely in this damp swale. The swale itself is one that actually holds water longer than what I'd really hoped. It can stay in this swale for quite some time during the wet winters. I have had to just put some covering down on the swale to hopefully get some vegetation going, which is working quite well in this section here. I just haven't had enough of the old hay to really do it all, and you can see that there's bare soil in this section here, which is not ideal, but I'll still be working on that. Down further is kind of like a little reed bed, and the frogs really love it in that area, so I'm just going to leave that as is, and hopefully that just helps to clean some of the water that comes in off the road, which is just beyond the fence line there. This is another moisture loving little plant that's just growing in this swale. Moving along, I have my quince tree. I've had to tie it up again because the bush rats did a number on the roots of this tree also, so much so that it was lying just about on the ground. I have removed some of the branches to help give it a bit of a go, but I'm going to take out some more because it's really slow to recover, and it's just got too much growth up there. Oh, see, it's still really wobbly. Now that I'm happy with the base of my tree, I'm just going to give some of this tree a bit of a pruning so it's got less to look after. I'm no expert pruner, I'm still learning all of this. So there's certainly less for this plant to have to deal with, and I've still left some green growing branches on it. If it gets going again, I might still have to trim off some of these, but I don't want to trim them off at this point until it's recovered. And the prunings now can, of course, form some of the mulch layer. I just love the soft greeny colours of this pseudo acacia. It's another nitrogen fixing plant here on my swale, and it's just lovely. It is a mulch producer, and also if you do leave the tree to grow large and then coppice it, you can use these posts as stakes or for fence posting. It's a really strong wood, but at this point I am just going to be harvesting it for mulch and reaping the rewards from the nitrogen that it's fixing in the soil. It also produces some beautiful flowers in spring that once again my bees love. This little Tagasasti tree is just getting established, so I'm going to mulch around that. Generally I don't worry with the support trees because they're generally hardy and look after themselves really well, but for these little guys I just want to ensure that they've got everything they need to take off really well. Now underneath all this weed is quite a bit of woody mulch, so there's not much to do with this little plant to ensure it continues to thrive. I'm just going to do that and call it good. This tree here is a Hartley Fig Tree. Last year was the first time I got some figs from it, and they were absolutely delicious. I've never had a fig straight off the tree before, so that was quite a treat. And it's got lots of fruit starting to form on it already. I'm just going to pull out some of these grasses that's right around the base and kind of just lay them flat in there. So once again, this tree has been cleared around the base of the weeds and they've been dropped in place, but it's got plenty of this woody mulch to keep it happy throughout the rest of summer. This here is what I call my rescue fig. It was in a pot, neglected, on the side of the road, just down my little country road here. So I brought it home and planted it, and it's thrived ever since. There's been lots of growth, not a lot of fruit at this point. I did have 2 growing on it, but they've since dropped off. So I'm hopeful for next year. We just need to deal with a little bit of weed pressure and a few grasses. But like the Hartley fig, it really is well mulched already with the woody mulch. So not a lot to do with these trees. Just down from my fig tree, I have 2 rhubarb plants that I put here back in winter. They definitely need a little bit of mulch and just clearing to make sure that they get plenty of sunshine. Sometimes I do grab the grasses and weeds from further afield just to really make sure I've got a good bit of mulch around these establishing plants. The mulch also keeps all these extra weeds and plants at bay, so a thick layer helps with that as well. Next is this guy. That leaf's dead. You can be a mulch item. These buttercups really are easy to pull. Okay, that's number 2 rhubarb looking happier. Just beyond another Tagasasti and pseudoacacia, we have my cherry tree. I got my ducks because we've got this issue with cherry slug. These awful looking things are the larvae of the sawfly, I think it is. Part of its life cycle is down in the soil, and that's why I got the ducks to come and root around in the ground to try and get on top of this issue. But we've still got it eating a lot of the trees. It's damaging the leaves and there's lots all over it. Now if I flung ash at it, that would get on top of it, but this tree is getting really too big to deal with that now. So it's one of those situations where I'm just going to let nature do its thing, and hopefully we'll find some balance in the future. So it had some fruit on it, but they dropped off. So hopefully next season we'll kick into actually getting some harvest from this tree. The more mulch, the woody mulch you get down, the easier it is to kind of keep these weeds under control. And then one day, as the soil improves and becomes more fungal, these weeds will just start to disappear altogether. So my dead acacia, I have its replacement growing. So I'll just give this some love and help it on its way. So I think that's all it needs. It's really starting to take off now. These are a really fast growing acacia and great for that biomass creation, as long as you don't let them die. Right next to this Jerusalem artichoke, we have another one of our acacias, which is really starting to take off well. Just beyond this little tree, I've got some black currants hiding in the grass. So I planted 7 in this location. Now, if my cover crop originally had been successful, I probably wouldn't have to go around doing this, and who knows, I might really have to do it anyway. They probably just keep on going, but I just feel like a little bit of TLC at this point will go a long way to really getting them established well. 7 black currants, all mulched and accounted for. This is my pomegranate tree, which is a lovely little shrub, which is just as well because I think the climate here mightn't be that great for growing pomegranates. I think we need probably a hotter summer than what we've been having lately, but it's here to stay, and we'll just have to see how it goes. In one of my earlier videos, I showed propagating rhubarb. This is one of the plants that I transplanted back then. I think it was sort of maybe May or June, and it's starting to get established here. Again, this is not only a food plant, it's also a potential source of mulch. As that plant gets bigger, you can just chop the leaves off when you're harvesting, use those as the mulch, or if you don't really need the rhubarb, just throw it all down on the ground. Under this Mariposa plum tree, it's all pretty well mulched. I don't think I have to do anything extra here. There's a few fruit on the ground that didn't quite make it, but I'm happy to leave this one until we do our major chop and drop in a couple of months' time. So trees are selected for this little food forest for various reasons. This one is as a support tree, and it provides nitrogen to the soil. It is a mulch source, which I'll use in a chop and drop. I'll be able to do that come early autumn. I'm not going to leave it too late this year, and I'm not going to take too much of the tree, and I'll be able to drop that on the soil. But in the meantime, it's a great source of food for my bees. I've got this Jerusalem artichoke, which I've planted in various spots just because I have it available, and it increases diversity. So too, I've got various calendula coming up, which again is for pollinators and diversity. This is the first of my plums to become really productive. Last year it didn't have any fruit on it, And this is its third season in this spot, so it's been here sort of for 2.5 years. So I'm pretty impressed with the amount of fruit. I didn't prune this tree back in winter. I was a bit concerned that it would be affected by a fungus that can happen if you prune when it's really cold. So I'm going to prune as soon as this fruit is off the tree. Around this beautiful Satsuma plum tree, just a few grasses that I'll cut down. I've just got to be careful because there are quite a few calendula under here, and I really love the look of those, so I'll be careful not to cut too many of them. That's the first one I've had. It's a little bit tart, so it might have come off the tree a little bit too early, but it's still juicy and lovely. That's all I wanted to get done today. Just a bit of tidying up around my plants and making sure that they're all travelling okay. It's warming up now, so I'm pleased to be finished. But, you know, it only takes a couple of hours and you do get some rewards for your efforts as well. If you'd like to see how I propagate plants to help spread around my food forest areas, like my rhubarbs and all sorts of other things, I'll leave a link to 2 videos at the end.